Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prehistory Guys Q&A session, question time, every second Tuesday of the month for those who are not in the know. But as usual, I'm very happy to see everybody here. Michael Bott here in Warwickshire.
Yeah, Rupert Soskin here down in the sunny south of France. It's been lovely there. I hope you're all getting better weather than a lot of my friends in England. What's it been like with you, Mike? Because it's just been horrible for most people.
It's been cold, yes. So, yeah, very good evening to you, or good afternoon. You may be in the middle of the afternoon for you, depending on where you are in the world. As I said, thank you for joining us. If you're new to what we're up to, this is our chance as the Prehistory Guys to, get your questions answered, or at least turn them into some kind of talking points, and to get to know our fans just a little bit better, many of whom I see in the chat already. Fantastic. So, what's the news of the day, Mr. Soskin? What can we tell the good people?
The news of the day. Wow, the news of the day is just, it's all relentless at the moment, in a good way. I mean that in a good way. The ongoing research, we keep turning up more and more and more stuff that it's like, just when it comes to thinking of new films, we're going to have an even bigger battle this time of what we leave out, aren't we?
Well, here's the thing. This is one of the wonderful things of having the question time. As we'll find out later in the evening, we get to learn new stuff. These questions, because our brains, contrary to popular belief, are not the vast repositories of infinite knowledge that you'd like to think they are. And your questions do have us going off and researching stuff and coming across stuff that, frankly, we'd not, or forgotten maybe, or
something
forgotten that we knew once upon a time.
Something that's a bit of a shocker, and we're probably, it doesn't matter where we live in the world, we're probably all guilty of this to some extent, that we do history at school, and it's not that many schools do prehistory as well, but we do history, and we learn what we learn that seems to be relevant for our own culture, and we found out.
Fair enough.
When we did that. What kind of? It's just that when we did that piece recently about the El Argar burial in southern Spain, and we didn't know anything about the El Argar culture, and so reading up on this new discovery and finding out that this was a hugely important culture, and we didn't know anything about them. So you start looking at other things. And one of the questions this evening that we'll be getting to shortly, it's another example of, have you heard that name? I think I've heard that name, but what else? And then really just lifting up the corner of this lid and finding out that,
oh goodness gracious
what's
me.
in there. And so there's so many prehistoric cultures there that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about them. It's quite shocking, really.
Yeah, great to see some new names in the chat here. And forgive me if I'm not recognizing people. But Wolfman GTI, hi everyone. That's great. Matt, I know. John Hunter, Ayrshire. And who is it? Christopher's mum, Perthshire. Everybody's letting us know where they are, which is tremendous. Phil in Solihull, just up the road from me. Yeah. You're very, very welcome indeed. I suppose the thing that we need to just reiterate and get out there right from the get-go is, of course, we depend on our wonderful Patreon supporters for being able to do this, but also to express, what's going on right now in terms of Patreon support and the appeal that we're going to be making. 2008 we released a film called Standing with Stones. It turns out to, in 2000 20 to have been a fantastic success. But over all that time, people have been asking us, when are you going to make the next one? And now we're just putting the rails down and saying,
We are.
Right, this is what we're aiming for. This is what the funding is aiming for. And that is Rupert and I getting Standing with Stones 2 out there. And telling a great, great story. Now, all our soldiers are not in a row yet as far as, the things we need to do. We need to prepare some materials, make a nice
We're still amassing the army.
Yeah. Make a little promo film about making Standing with Stones 2 and how you can help. But you can start helping straight away by going to the link in the description below. Yes, I think it's there. Going to our Patreon page and seeing if you can help us out. It would be much, much appreciated. And as things go on, you'll get on the inside track of making a big film. It will be a big film. We're not quite sure what shape it's going to take yet, but it'll be huge.
Yes. So the biggest difference with this one is that there will be some necessary international travel. And yes, obviously, it just organising that is costly enough. So yes, the more people get on board, the definitely the easier it will be. But it's an exciting one, really. We're quite thrilled to finally have made that decision. Okay, no, we're doing it now.
And I tell you what's different. It is this impetus that we've got now, having a kind of team that are on our case. If we say something, we're going to do something. Right, that's it. That mark is in the sand. That line is in the sand. Everybody's heard us, and they're going to be holding us to account and hopefully enjoying the journey along with us. So,
Indeed.
As I say, have a look at our Patreon page and see if you can help us out. Right, let's move things along a bit. Before anything else...
I'm just going to say, before I knock my glasses off, I'm just going to say there's a few names here. Kate from California, hi. And Francis in Oberursel, is that in Germany? Wow.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Fantastic.
And Virginia's in Mexico.
Wow. Colin in Strathclyde. Martin's here. Hello, Martin. So it's great to know where you are. Cool.
Just off the bat now, Paul and Rebecca got this in last, but I'm going to answer it first because it's apropos of what we've just been talking about. And Paul says, forgive me if we're late for questions. Yes, you are. Obviously, when time and COVID restrictions allow, plus taking into consideration Standing with Stones 2, will you be producing your short vlog stroke informative videos on specific subjects again? Yes, we will. We've just been remiss over the past couple of weeks not getting anything out there. And we're starting to put that to rights on Friday when we'll be recording a few for your...
Yes. I will rephrase what Michael just said. We haven't been remiss. We've just been so busy and we can't do everything. There are times when we look at this vast list of things that we're trying to achieve. And sometimes it's a question of just juggling. And some things go on a slightly back burner. But yes, as Michael said, we are doing another one on Friday, so you'll get that soon.
So what shall I do? What, less of this guilt trip then, Rupert, do you think?
Definitely less of the guilt trip thing, yes.
All right.
Let the apologist for being busy. Who else did I just see there? I saw somebody in
Kerry, somebody from Kerry.
Bitcoin, Newfoundland.
John Main.
Calgary, Canada. Hello, Diana. And Candide in Port Soy. Wow. I'm
Annika.
Sorry if we don't say hello to you all, everybody, because Annika. Hello.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so nice. So nice. Let's get on with it.
First
Where
up,
are we going first?
Jimmy Lawley.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello there. I haven't seen you in the chat yet, but hopefully.
Here.
Is he?
He's here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, here we go then. Jimmy, one of our great fans, asks, do you think the prominence of Stonehenge in the national psyche will ever be eclipsed? Do you think maybe Avebury and Thornborough have as much, if not more, to tell us?
Well,
Short
there you
answer
go.
is yes.
And no. Do we think that Stonehenge will ever be eclipsed? No. Do we think other sites have got more to offer? Yes.
Yes. And I don't think it's a question of Stonehenge being eclipsed, because Stonehenge is just something that just seems to keep on giving. But the fact that Avebury and Thornborough do have a lot more to give, hopefully more attention may be paid to both of those sites. I don't know. It's a difficult ask, isn't it? Because as ever, it's to do with availability, to do with funding, to do with impetus, to do with the academic questions that can be answered by doing a dig, and all those kinds of things. It is, in many ways frustrating, and there are many complications about Avebury and Thornborough before we're able to go ahead and really get the information or get the story, I should say, out of them fully. What do you think, Rupert?
Well, don't you think that from the sheer perspective of, you look at Stonehenge and it is the bling of Neolithic Britain. So from the point of view of people wanting to visit something spectacular, then no, I think Stonehenge will always be at that pinnacle. But then when you look at Avebury, just mentioning the sites that Jimmy mentioned, looking at Avebury, I love the fact that Avebury, well, people are still living there, right in the henge. That the pub is still in the middle of it. That here we are, thousands of years down the line, and it's still, okay. Put it another way, you go to any city you like, and you're living where people have been living for thousands of years. We've just eradicated all trace of them having been there before us. But you look at Avebury, and no, we're still living where people have been living for thousands of years, but we just haven't eradicated the signs. But places like Stonehenge, all right, we don't know how it fitted in with social structure. Thornborough, we have our theories about how that may have fitted in with social structure. I don't say that in a cryptic way, but there are so many sites all over Britain. I think that as we excavate more and more of the mega henges, for example, Mount Pleasant in Dorset, that we're going to find out progressively more and more and more, and different sites will rise in importance. But I don't think they'll eclipse Stonehenge. No.
Yeah. No, probably not. There is nowhere near as much work gone on at Thornborough as at Stonehenge. But actually, there's more gone on there than you'd think. There's enough gone on there to reveal that there was a really thriving and complicated community doing stuff there, with many things to explain around Thornborough. What's the name of the guy? Jan. Help me. Archaeologist. Jan. What?
No, sorry, I was asking you who you were talking about specifically.
Well, the author of the main study of Thornborough.
Of Thornborough?
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah, sorry, gone out of my head. But then I'm thinking back to Avebury, and Avebury is actually a very difficult site to get anything more out of. It's hard to know where to look to get results. Josh Pollard tried a few years ago and came away a disappointed man. With thousands upon thousands upon thousands of bits of flint and nothing much to show for it. He didn't find, his team did not find what they were looking for in terms of establishing where the community of Avebury were, where they lived, what they did. So we don't have that bit of the story of Avebury to tell yet, and it's difficult to know where to look to get that. I think the more incredible stuff is going to come out of Dorchester and Mount Pleasant and Mulberry Rings and up there, actually. There's a fascinating story to unpick there. And we will be interviewing Sue Greeny, who has been the lead author on the new paper that's going to be coming out soon, or has come out, about Dorchester. Yeah,
yes. We're interviewing her on the 29th, but it won't be published for a while after that. We've got we've got a few to go, but
all right.
But yeah, she'll be fascinating. It was Jan Harding, by the way, that you were.
Jan Harding, thank you. Yeah.
I
think it's
one
Jan.
of the.
I think it's Jan.
Okay, Jan.
Just being anal about it.
I don't mind. It's JAN. Take it however you like it.
Cool.
But yeah, I was just going to say an interesting thing. We were only talking about this yesterday, in fact, that when you look at sites like Mornbury Rings in Dorset, that even going back just 300 years, not even 300 years actually, 200 and something years, that there are illustrations of Mornbury Rings where you can very much still see that it was a perfectly serviceable arena. And it's only in the last short period of time that we've that it's eroded away as much as it has. I mean, it's still, I suppose, if you look at it in aerial photography or satellite imagery, and it's still very present. But the point is that it's only in that short period of time that it's become this enigma again, and I think that's very telling, that it's modern farming and the like that has made such a difference to the landscape.
Yeah. I think a very general point is that Avebury, Thornborough, Mount Pleasant, very, very grand sites. But the interesting thing is, I think so many lesser sites are revealing themselves to be complex, or to be complexes, if you like. I hope that's answered your question for the moment there, Jimmy. Shall we move along to Matt's Lazim Landrover? Matt's question.
What's Matt asking this time?
Guys, have either of you been to Mininglow? Short answer is no. Long answer is it is no. But I mean, there isn't much to say about Mininglow except that it's an extraordinary site and well done for pointing it out to us up there in Derbyshire.
Yes. What can we say? It looked well. I've only seen imagery of it, and it does look. Well, it's worth a visit, isn't it? I mean, it looks fabulous.
Oh my lord!
Sitting on the top of the hill there. So for those of you that don't know, I think it's Bronze Age, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know?
No. Well, no. The big cairn is Neolithic. There are two barrows, not bell barrows, associated with it. But the main thing is Neolithic. It's a big tomb up there, with a capstan and all, and chamber. It's a chambered tomb. Yeah, but with a huge diameter straddling across the top of that hill. It's right on the top of a hill. Yeah,
and it's very circular.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have to go there. Obviously, we have to go there, and it's very frustrating that we didn't know about it when we were up there only a couple of years ago. It's another one of those things that because there are so many sites, thousands upon thousands, and so sometimes we don't go digging when we're going out because there's just too many. But that one is definitely worth a look.
Well, the fantastic thing there is, of course, if you go up to that part of Derbyshire within a very, you can do a little tour just below Bakewell, which is a lovely town. You've got Arborough, which we know very well. We've got the Nine Ladies of Stanton Moor, and we've got Nine Stones Close, which is often inhabited by cows in our experience, isn't it?
A lot more horseflies than cows.
We will point you in the direction of our henge hunt we did up there. Yeah.
Yes.
No, so that's it's a good collection of sites to visit. And now, Mininglow. Yeah. So,
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for flagging that up.
I think it's one of those cases where words don't really do it justice, and yeah.
No, I mean, it looks like a spectacular place to visit, and I think again, it's another very good illustration of the fact that when you see these the sites that are, whether they're on the tops of hills or just generally in the countryside.
Yeah.
But it illustrates the fact so powerfully that the vast majority of the sites are long since disappeared underneath our big towns and cities. Because people haven't moved. We're still where we've been living broadly. So yeah, I think a lot of the time we should be digging inside cities. You look at the stuff that gets the amount of archaeology that only happens because a development company, they've been building a block of flats or something, and something is discovered when they're digging the foundations. It happens all the time.
Hail to Jimmy Lawley.
Jimmy Lawley, what's he done now?
He helped save 9 ladies from the stone quarriers. There was that big thing about...
Did you, Jimmy? Yeah, well done.
Yeah. Were you sat in a tree for a long time, by any chance?
See, it needs people.
That was quite a siege. That was.
Yeah.
I don't know if it may even be still ongoing, in a way, but yeah. That's good to hear, Jamie. Yeah, nice one. As David Potter says. I shall move along. I think we've got question from Dennis Parker. I don't know if you're in the chat or if you're here, Dennis. Please let yourself be known if you are. Interesting question. What is the connection between the Scilly Isles prehistory and Brittany and Ireland? I don't know if you know, Dennis, but a good friend of ours is Duncan Garra. And a while ago, I think it was only 2012, his paper was that he wrote with the guy that he works with, Fraser Sturt. And they did a study. What's the name of the study? Can you remember off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, but I think I can find it.
It's such a great title. I can't see it. Oh, here it is. How's this for a title for an archaeological paper? Grey waters bright with Neolithic Argonauts, ? Maritime connections and the Mesolithic Neolithic transition within the western seaways of Britain 5000 to 3500 BC. How about that?
Snappy, huh?
Snappy. Yeah. So, Duncan and Fraser were doing that dive and actually getting out there in the field, trying to examine this Mesolithic, Neolithic transition from the point of view of the waterways. Everything tends to get concentrated on the land and archaeological digs on the land because they're far easier. But no, Duncan and Fraser, who is a maritime archaeologist, actually got their feet wet and visited the Channel Islands and the Scilly Isles and points up the western coast. I think they're as far as Uist, as I remember. And I think it's one of those cases where they set out, to come back with something a bit more positive than they did. My memory is that they didn't get what they wanted from the stuff, but what they did find reinforced the assumptions about the spread of the megalithic of the people from Brittany and across the Channel and up the Irish Sea, and including the Scilly Isles. What was interesting about the Scilly Isles from their point of view was that the main bits of evidence they had were the microliths, which correspond with items from Belgium and from Normandy. So it's a kind of an odd spread. You'd expect the emphasis to be more on the western areas of France, not so much that far along. So yes, absolutely, the evidence on Scilly and on the Channel Islands for the and up, going beyond up to the Isle of Man, going on up to Uist and Scotland, and that what's the Ferreter's Point? That's included in the
yes.
on the where is it? That's Southwest Island, isn't it? Ferreter's Point down the bottom there.
Yeah, we should probably say why it's funny, shouldn't we?
Yes, you should.
It's not really funny. It's not really funny. Well, it might be funny, but
I think that should get Alison on to tell the story. That would be.
We should actually. Alison Sheridan, the wonderful Alison Sheridan. She's written about this. But it seems that cattle were taken to Ireland way back. Do you remember the date of their appearance at Ferreter's Cove there?
It's around about 3,800 BC, something.
It's a long way back. You're talking about, it's well over 5,000 years ago. And the thing is, the implication is that that people had, new farmers, they had taken cattle over to rear and farm. And then it seems that the locals just decided, well, no, they look like good food, and and so they just killed and ate the stock that had just arrived, and cattle did not reappear in Ireland until I can't even remember how much later, but just
so. Yeah, Ferreter's Point is held up.
It was a plan that just did not come together.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes, Ferreter's Cove, the plan did not come together too well.
You can imagine, because can you imagine though? It doesn't matter. Because so you're taking cattle to an island from a mainland. So whether they're from Northern Europe. I mean, an example, not cattle, but an example I can think of is that the first sheep in Britain that we know about in the Bronze Age, we think they go back earlier than that, but the first ones that we know about in the Bronze Age came from Belgium. They're Soe sheep that came from Belgium. So somebody had to take them across the channel to get to now. What sort of boats are they using? Are they rafts? Are they lashing stuff together? What are they doing? But cows to Ireland. There's no short sea route to Ireland. That's
even
that's
if you stop
mission.
off at the Scilly Isles.
That's a mission. And they took cows on a boat of some description. And you think, they've gone to all that effort to take cows, and the buggers have just shot them and eaten them. It must have been so frustrating.
Anyway, I hope that Scilly Isles, it seems, should be important, positioned where it is for any maritime adventures going in and out of the Irish Sea and the Channel and so forth. But the only people that have been there to try and establish that as a fact didn't quite come off for them. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the link to Duncan's paper in the comments here, so you can chase that down. And that didn't copy and paste. Why not?
I'm just reading something.
Making that. Here we go. Again,
reading some of the comments here. German giant rabbit. This is Michael. German giant rabbit breeders sent 6 pairs to North Korea to help feed the people. Kim ate all 6 pairs in one meal. Is that true? Oh, good grief. And
We will never know.
Micah Joe says calves ? Yeah, but even if they were calves, what boat are you putting them? And okay, they probably tied their feet together so that they couldn't be a nuisance.
Even
but,
so, the practicalities, the mind does boggle.
Yeah,
and you wonder if we're missing something as far as boats are concerned. Just because we haven't found a bigger boat doesn't mean they didn't.
Well, I go back to the documented stuff that we know about the Polynesians. That the Polynesians used to they had big dugout rafts. I say dugout; they were dugout, but they were sophisticated dugout. And they would lash them together, and the largest recorded thing I'm talking about, it was James Cook on those voyages when they wrote about what the Polynesians were doing, and they would take hundreds of people at a time on these lashed together rafts. And so I think that if the Polynesians were doing that in dugouts, then it's more than likely that that people back in the Neolithic were quite capable of doing the same sort of thing, I would think. But nevertheless, taking livestock in any kind of boat like that is still, some of those waters are treacherous.
Yeah. If any of you have tried to get yourself in and out of a floating vessel, with a narrow beam, let alone, anyway, we don't know. I think we've yet to find the boat. Hey ho. I think we shall move on now, Mr. Soskin. That was Dennis. Oh, and there's a question from Cork now.
Hello, Cork.
In Australia. Just 1 second. Sorry, I just thought I could hear a rumbling, and it's exterior, not anything to worry about. Sorry, Cork. Recumbent stone circles. I just always assumed they were for excarnation, like the hypothesis of Stonehenge's use, but I've never seen or heard anyone mention this. I just wanted to know your personal assumptions or ideas on the purpose of recumbent stones, and also the idea that everything has to be sacred all the time. It's going to be a long show, Rupert.
Yeah. Where do we start with this?
The recumbent stones are certainly amongst our favourite, of collections. It is just a deep pleasure to go to Aberdeenshire and visit those there. Not forgetting, of course, that there are recumbent stones in the south of Ireland as well. But that's a story for another time, I think.
It's... Yeah, although it's worth saying, it's funny, Martin's just commented, I have no idea what the recumbent stone means. Oh. Yeah, well, if you don't. The funny thing about the recumbent stone circle, so you've got a large-ish stone circle, and there is one recumbent stone. It's a big stone, the biggest in the circle, lying on its side as a sort of, it looks like an altar. And up in Aberdeenshire in Scotland, where is, that's pretty much where they all are. Then the latitude is such that at the peak of its cycle, the moon just grazes the horizon and skirts along the altar stone. So we know that they were to do with lunar observation in some way. Now, I'd always thought that that the altar, that was a big deal. That if they were a lunar worshipping culture, maybe, then here's a demonstration of something that, well, that could be ritual. It could be religious in some way. He said, just thinking of something else he's going to say later on. But I must admit, Cork, before you put this question in, I had never thought about them in terms of excarnation, but that makes utter sense. It makes utter sense that you would lay your bodies out on because excarnation, again, those of you that don't know, there was a practice for quite a long period of time where bodies would be left to rot, basically, and it would be the bones that were collated afterwards, and they would rot away and be eaten by animals and what have you. It was the bones that were important. And I had never thought about the recumbent stone circles in terms of excarnation. Call me silly.
It's one of those things we'll have to just keep in mind when looking at them again and see if anything clicks, see if anything, works. Because there's no evidence for that. It's just excarnation. And would have to look at the burial practices round about, of which I'm woefully ignorant, I do believe.
Yeah, Cherish has just said could be both. Absolutely, it could be both. And I think it's the thing with so many sites that we shouldn't ever imagine that they only served one purpose. Okay, unless it's a chambered tomb that that's where they buried people. Fair enough, but we shouldn't ever take that for granted. A lot of sites could have been used for all sorts of different things.
Yeah. But I mean, to speak to Cork's, the latter bit of Cork's question, and I mean, as Cork, as you get to know us a bit better, you realise, that is one of the strong things that we come from. That this assumption that megalithic sites were served some ritual purpose is something we like to come away from. Not chuck it out, but don't allow it to always cloud. Because the trouble is, once you've got an explanation for something in your head, then you tend to stop looking. And as there is no, absolute concrete evidence for ritual use, that means that you come to a grinding halt for no reason. And you've stopped allowing other possibilities in.
See, when you say there's no concrete evidence for ritual use, for, say, stone circles, the reality is there isn't any evidence, is there? It's not. It's not. It's not that it's not even concrete. There isn't any evidence at all. And it's something that we do bang on about it because so much of accepted cultural stuff today, you look at the fact that the Druids, modern day Druids, do their solstice stuff at Stonehenge and what have you, and the Druids had nothing to do with Stonehenge. And it's only because William Stukeley back in 17 whatever was the one who, well, he wasn't the one that really started it. He was just the one that made it stick. That thought that everything was a Druid temple. Yeah. It's all his fault. And nobody has really questioned that. Well, okay, a few people do, but generally speaking, people don't question it. And and we've said so many times, just imagine if William Stukeley, who was the guy who put all these prehistoric sites on the map, it's supposing he'd been a carpenter rather than a clergyman, because to give him the credit that he deserves, you're talking about a period of time when we had no understanding of the true history of the earth, that the Bible was what everybody went by, and therefore there were no civilizations before the Romans, really, in Britain, which means who else could have done it? Because the Romans came along and got rid of the Druids. Well, there was nobody before that because God had only just made the place. So Stukeley saying that it was the Druids who built them all, he wasn't being stupid. It was just the knowledge of the day. But as I said, supposing he had been a carpenter or a farmer, what would he have said they were? It was only because he was a clergyman that he saw them all as temples. It's confirmation bias all the way.
Anyway, this is a conversation that could go on for quite a long time, I think. But I hope, Cork, that gives you the flavour of where we come from. Tim Lazenby.
Hello, Tim.
Tim answers. It was, off the rails question. What annoys you most about the work you currently do? Not as in gripes, i.e. too much woo-woo in the industry. I refer more to the grander issues, if any.
Not enough budget. That's my biggest gripe. Not enough budget.
Getting things done. I guess so. I tell you what, I was speaking to Rupert about this earlier, and the thing that really came up that annoyed me most is my lack of capacity or diminishing capacity to retain information. As as we as we became the Prehistory Guys, not that long ago, we threw the doors open, to be open to a much more wider spectrum of input. And what's been extraordinary is just how much stuff is coming in, and I just wish there was more ability to retain the information and join the dots and stuff. And this is fantastic thing about, as I said before, of having you folk ask us these questions. It really forces us to look. And I tell you, you are helping us join the dots by doing this.
Sometimes very unknowingly.
So thank you.
Sometimes there are things that we find almost by accident, completely left field. Something comes up that really is another dot that can be put on that line.
Seriously,
yes.
The big complaint that I have is I don't have enough time to do this full time at the moment. You saying budget, that it's that being able to say goodbye to all the other, professional and freelancing work that we do in order to provide an income and just have enough income from this, to relieve that frustration of not being able to do as much as we possibly could. So you know what to do, don't you, folks? Stamp the links in them.
Yeah, it's true. It would allow us to do an awful lot more and an awful lot faster. But do you know what? I think there must be some things that I think my biggest problem, I suppose, is that that there is. It's not a gripe. It's not really a gripe. It's just that people, they're researching on the back of research and on the back of research and on the back of research, and so there is still this concept of the sacred landscape, for example, which is going back to what I was just saying about Stukely. That people still call Wiltshire, that essentially was. I believe, I think we both believe that it was the capital of Neolithic Britain. They call it the sacred landscape. Oh God, it's just there's no evidence for that, and it stops people looking at a fully rounded society. It's which for me is silly. I think it's a shame that there are so many things that crop up in the landscape that if you just dropped this obsession with the sacred landscape, then all sorts of things would make more sense. Hopefully,
but we're doing our best. We really are doing our best with that. And I think when Standing with Stones 2 comes out, And whenever we open our mouths about places like Avebury, and Stanton Drew and Mount Pleasant, and all these kinds of places, and the revelations that they're giving to us, I'm sure that the drip, drip, drip will get our point of view noticed generally in the fullness of time. So, yeah.
And
not
I
that
would
we
like
claim to be right, we just claim that most people are missing a trick, that's all. Yeah.
Well, I will say in our defence, though, that whilst we don't claim to be right, that would be an arrogance, we do base all our theories on the evidence that we find rather than what has been said before. And we do constantly try to find evidence to contradict our theories as well, just in case we're missing something. And thus far, we haven't found anything. So it's
right.
It's exciting times. Shall we move on?
It's cool. Enough about us. Except what is the next question? Oh, Ian. No, this is not about us at all. Ian Tarry, thank you so much for this. Not sure if this is inside your area of discussion for this channel, but have you any plans to cover the Vinca culture at all? Love to learn more about them. Wow, and so would we.
Yeah, that's a fabulous question, Ian, because... now go on, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, hope you're there in the chat, Ian, or if you're watching this this later, because it's exactly the sort of question, that enriches what we do, by taking these things into account. And just, I'd heard of Vinca culture, and it may have sort of crossed my mind, but before, or I may have looked at it before, but it hadn't. I hadn't looked at it in the right sort of context, and now, having done the work that we've done, looking back, I'm thinking, I nearly said a rude word there. I tell you what, that was nearly expletive land. Because this is so extraordinary. Because the Vinca culture, think of where Serbia is. The Vinca culture spread across most of Serbia, and I think is named for the Vinca River. Is that right? Not sure.
Yeah, through the Balkans. So Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Transylvania, and over there.
Here's the thing: what are the dates? 5,500 BC and
57 BC was
57 BC,
the start
and we've
date
got a
given.
culture with figurative sculpture and with symbolic sort of script writing. Don't know. It's not
It's
no language.
It's never been deciphered. It's
never
never
been
been deciphered. But the characters are quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
The ceramics. Oh my God, the pottery.
Yeah. The pottery.
It's amazing, and also Vinca culture, the earliest known copper tools in the world.
Yeah, that as well.
Now the thing is, I can't tell a lie until Ian asks this question. You hear the name Vinca culture, and it's another one. I had no idea. And you start looking at certain aspects of this. I mean, one of the things that really excited me, because some of you will know that, we do a lot of research on how people were working with livestock in prehistory, and you can tell from their statues, their little ceramic figurines and what have you, that their clothing was woven from flax and wool. Now, as soon as you start talking about wool, this is people using livestock as a renewable source. That's a different space. That really excited me.
So what we've got here is a Neolithic farming culture, with this extraordinary pottery. Use of symbols, shall we say, and copper, and a full millennia before people make it into Britain.
Yeah, and also the fact that the Vinca settlements, and there were quite a few of them throughout the region, the Vinca settlements were larger than any other contemporary culture that we know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here these. I keep calling them Vinca because I have Inca in my heart. Vinca.
Vinca. Sounds like
It's just.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, really. So, yeah, very grateful to you, Ian, for flagging this one up.
Yeah.
It reminded me, actually, that some of you may have seen we did an article a month ago about the El Agar culture, a burial that had been discovered in southern Spain. And the thing is that, even if you've heard the name El Agar culture, that it's the fact that it was only when we started researching to make this short program that we realized quite how much we didn't know. And so here we've got yet another one. So we've got the El Agar culture, who were a massively important Iberian group who traded widely throughout the Mediterranean. And here we've got, an even bigger culture that we didn't know anything about. And it's like, well, how many others are there? That maybe these are more strands that we can be pulling together trying to make sense of.
I think if we really push the boat out, Rupert, we can make an argument for including Romania and Serbia in Standing with Stones too, maybe.
Oh, I think we need to.
And if we're going to reach back even further in time, if we're talking about the extraordinary thing of having figurative sculpture that, just preceding the Vinca culture is the Iron Gates Mesolithic culture, Lipinski Vir, round about the Danube. Those extraordinary sculptures that look like fish heads.
Do you know what? Actually, you're right. I hadn't actually thought about that. There is a slight similarity in their the way they were seeing people, the kind of fish heads we called them for Lipinski Vir, and that's a good point. Well done. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
That's pushing it back even further, along the shores of the Danube there. So who knows where all this is going to take us. We'll do our best to pull it all together. And in the meantime, Ian, thank you so much for that. Lord knows, what direction you may have pushed the prehistory guys now. You may have altered the fabric of time itself by this question.
We reserve the right to blame you.
Anything in the comments? Lake Superior copper at 9,700. Thank you, Cherish. Agar is early bronze. Los Milares is copper. This is the wonderful thing. Fantastic settlements to do with that culture and control of an area the size of Belgium with an hierarchical society. Much to be
Cherish has just said they've dated Lake Superior copper at 9,700 years.
Yeah.
Have they? Have they? I shall look that one up.
Candy, the digger you deep, the more you find. That is we dig deeper so you don't have to. Mind you, you're doing quite a lot of digging on our behalf. Let's move on to Stone Age Steve. Actually, before I answer your questions, Stone Age Steve, I don't know, let me know. I haven't seen you in the comments, but let us know if you resolved that issue with your Patreon membership. I wasn't able to do it.
I sent him a message. He hasn't replied yet.
Okay. Stone Age Steve asks, regarding cup holes, I've been watching, Steve's been watching stories by Alex, a Californian prehistory explorer. He finds endless boulders covered with what he calls mortars, as in pestle and mortar, remnants of ancient native activity. They strongly resemble cup holes found here. I'm wondering if cup holes are also remnants from a much earlier time and were on the stones long before they were erected. Would like to hear your thoughts. There's quite a lot there, actually, Steve.
I think there is the simple line through it, and that is that, yes, Steve, we agree. It's something that we have discussed in various contexts before, but it does seem most likely in pretty much all the places that we've seen cup and ring markings, that they were horizontal a long time before they were ever reused and erected to be standing megaliths. I can't really think of any. Even when you look at places like the rock art in Knowth in Ireland, there's just this incredible wealth of rock art. And the thing is that we do know from Newgrange. So you've got these key sites in the Boyne in Northern Ireland, and we do know from Newgrange that it was when they were when they were restoring the site, that they found that the stones lining the passageway had rock art on the back. So the inference being that these were old stones that had been decorated and they had been taken from another site to be reused. And here, the art was completely irrelevant. So they turned them to face into the wall because they just wanted the stone, not the art. And it's that sort of thing that clearly, I say clearly, is that a step too far? Probably. But the implication is that this rock art came from, whether it was a completely different culture who predated these people, or whether it was just, these people had moved on. It's even today, we have antique antique dealers who travel all around the place picking up bits and pieces from old farms or what have you to reuse them, repurpose them, and it's quite likely that it's the same sort of thing going on.
Now, I looked at one of those videos by stories by Alex. It seems like a really decent bloke. I mean, top
Where's
marks
he based?
to Alex, California, and literally what you call the mortars. They were practical. And as somebody has mentioned, I think earlier on, they are quite deep grinding holes for the grinding of acorn shells and the like. So there's a distinct difference between that practical use of grinding in a deep hole where you would need some kind of pestle anyway to make them workable, and more the kind of things that we're talking about when it comes to rock art itself, which doesn't seem to have any practical purpose at all. It's a fascinating topic, but this is the funny thing with stone, is that things can look very similar and yet be worlds apart in the concept and purpose. I guess. Interestingly, though, I know in one of them, Alex did point out that alongside the deep, practical grinding sort of pot in the stone were decorative, hollowings out that you couldn't find a meaning for. One of the things we find with rock art that's on surface rock art that still remains, horizontal. I think I'm not alone, and there is some kind of tradition, certainly in certain parts of the world, where the gathering of water in some of these hollows attains a healing property. And there may be stuff to do with that, and it may be, and particularly in places like, well, that's the only place I can think of actually, Kilmartin Glen, where you've got a lot of rock art, Achnabrec and where else? Achnabrec and Cairnbarn.
Cairnbarn was the other big one, yeah.
And not too far away, you've also got standing stones and monuments with rock art on the vertical surface. Were they stones that were torn out of the ground and repurposed to form those monuments? It's a question that's difficult to know.
Another aspect another aspect that it doesn't just apply to the rock art, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. We were actually talking about this in a different context only earlier on today, and that's that it's something that we do it all the time, and we shouldn't. And that's that we see a site and we imagine that it was designed to be that way. So whether it's the Stonehenge landscape, that we see this thing and think that's how they designed it to be, or you see this massive piece of rock art on a stone and think that's the way it was designed to be. We don't know that at all. It might have been, it could have been 500 years. Somebody did one cut mark, and then it was just a cultural thing that if you were passing that way or what have you, you dug another one or you cut another one. It's not a 5-minute job. It's quite possible that they took generations to develop.
Lazzy, Matt, have you listened to our interview with Kenny Brophy about a large part of that interview is about the Cocknose stone? Nice try with the Cudnose stone. It's Cocknose stone. It's covered in rock art. Wonderful stories there. Look it out if you haven't heard that.
The Cocknose stone is ridiculous.
And the story behind it as well. Yeah, sweet. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
David says the labyrinths and trippy patterns for the win every time. Yeah.
Matt E. Salt production on the northeast coast. Do you have any info on this, and also your thoughts on how this changes our understanding of how advanced society was back then? We don't really have any further information. We're really much as much in the dark as anybody else, really, as far as the background information is concerned. And I think it is very much a question of watch this space. But the important takeaway is the reason it's important is salt equals your fridge. It's like inventing the fridge. That's the importance of salt, and having it pushed so far back. What is it, 3,800 BC in this country?
That's staggering.
Whoa. And it does rather speak to the idea that there must have been quite an integrated economy.
It's an interesting. We were having a chat about this actually in our Patreon live only last week, or was it the week before? That the difference between
Matt's
smoking
here. Hi guys.
Food.
Hi there,
Hello, Matt. The difference between smoking food and salting food. The foods that there's a reason that you would use one over another for preserving. So the fact that they have pushed salt production back that far in the UK, it's very significant, because there's a big difference between salt mining and salt harvesting. The earliest known salt harvesting goes back way back, ridiculous amount of time in prehistory. So mining for salt is it's a very different thing. It's very easy to harvest salt from high saline areas, or salt flats or whatever. Very easy, but to be savvy enough to mine for it specifically.
It isn't mining though.
No, but I'm connecting this with the salt mines that are known about in Hallstatt, for example, in Austria. It does. It forces us, as Mike just said, it forces us to think about just how integrated social groupings were all those thousands of years ago. Did that mean that people could salt kippers from the Isle of Man and take them to Cornwall?
Well,
Yeah,
but it means you can salt meat for overwinter storage. That's
that too.
huge. But that's
It's
huge.
immense. Yeah.
But not only does that open up the possibility of storage, but it opens up the possibility of transport. That's the point I'm trying to make. This sort of it sort of so liberates so many aspects of for people to be able to travel and cooperate with each other. I think if we live in an age of freezers and refrigeration. And I think if we could go back to a time before that, we'd really recognise how important this was.
It's an intriguing thing that, if you look at the evidence we have,
kippers are smoked.
They are smoked. They are smoked.
And I should have called you on that because I'm from the Isle of Man.
I kind of said it on purpose because I have a very fond memory of taking a whole load of people to buy smoked kippers from the Isle of Man,
and
before they
Michael
went,
and Michael points out you still need salting to smoke food, so
you do. But no, I was going to say that the evidence we have for large-scale feasting in different places, and where there seems to be isotopic evidence that says that that meat has travelled a long distance, and prior to this, there was always that question of, wow, really, did they honestly drive a whole, like a herd of cows? Did they drive the whole damn lot, through the country? But you think, well, no, if they can salt the stuff, then it's a very different space to be in. And it's, it may be, maybe not, but it does add all sorts of feasibilities to it.
The sad
I don't know if we're
thing
answering your question at all, but
well, insofar as we can, because we really don't know much more beyond that at this point. Though we do want to dig deeper and and answer a few of the questions that the whole subject poses. Oh my God, I really want an Arbroath Smoky right now, says Michael. Yeah. So, and let me, because I'm not a great fish person. There's an Arbroath Smoky, a scallop.
Is it? I don't know. I'm not a big.
In
fish
other words,
person anyway,
is an Arbroath Smoky the same thing as a Manx Queenie? I'll let that one hang on the air, shall I?
Yeah, you might as well. I'm not a big fan of scallops either.
Oh, really? It's one of my favourite things now since I had it
Really?
had it in the restaurant.
Do you know what? The white bit, fine. The yellow bit, why would you eat that?
You don't eat that bit. No, but do you remember I had scallops in that restaurant that sat above the Tomb of the Otters, just a mile from the Tomb of the Eagles, down at the bottom of.
I'll be honest, I'd forgotten, but I do remember now that you say it. Yes.
Yeah.
And you convinced me they were good. I honestly have no recollection of what I ate that day at all.
Never mind. We've gone a bit sort of introverted there. We'll come out of it. Wildflower. Yes, good evening, Wildflower. I know you're there. Have you ever started making lists of which stone circle you think is a sanctuary and which is a cattle pen? Yeah, it sort of relates to our talking about ritual and practical and the division between the two, and how we make a choice, I guess.
I think to answer most succinctly, if you're asking us specifically about what our research is telling us, and that's that everywhere that we have found a site that has very, very clearly been So no dispute about it. It has to be ritual or religious in some way. And that can be, there was a Bronze Age site excavated in Israel that very clearly had altars within it, even though they were small and they were more plinth-like, but they were altars, and they had things that had been burnt on the altars. Then in Gegorot in the Ukraine, there were another quite sophisticated site where clearly ritual activity had gone on. There seemed to be animal sacrifices related to that site. There's various sites that we found that just no argument at all that this has to be ritual, and without exception, literally without exception, they've all been rectangular structures. And so when we start talking about circles, and that's why Cork's question earlier on was so interesting when she suggested
Hi, Cork.
that
She's joined us sometime ago.
hello, Cork.
Yeah.
That the possibility that the recumbent stone circles could have been to do with excarnation, it's a possibility, and so in that instance, that would be the first example of a circular site, a stone circle, where you could say, yeah, that might be ritual. Because the important thing to bear in mind is that even if something's got a burial within it, that doesn't make it a temple. There are cultures all over the world, and this is something that is known to have happened historically, and therefore possibly historically, is that burying people in cemeteries is something that happened comparatively late, and that really happened because the numbers of people were getting unmanageable. You had to put the dead somewhere where you could control that. Prior to that, and in many of the smaller indigenous peoples around the world, that you don't take somebody away from where they've always lived just because they've died. If you believe in an afterlife, well, why take them away from their home? And so there are many cultures where you bury somebody in the floor of their home, even if the family continues to live there, because why put them anywhere else? And personally, I completely see the emotional sense in that. So the fact that there are plenty of enclosures, palisaded enclosures, causewayed enclosures, where one or two burials have been found, to me, that doesn't say that it was a sacred place. It says that that's where that person lived. I think, I don't know if that's answering the question. I don't think any of the circles are sacred places as such.
Yeah, and the question was, have you ever started making lists? So we're not answering the question at all.
Okay.
And the answer is...
The list is, yes, we've got lists of places that are shrines and temples. None of them are circles.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, fair enough. And there's a discrepancy in terms of dating as well. Tends to be. But it's a good question because it does go to the heart of asking the questions. How would you even begin to decide if a site was one thing or the other? What set you off now? What on earth?
It was Michael. Michael Darby. Yeah, you know what? That's he said Fred West did it, and look how his neighbours reacted. Thank you.
Yes.
Matt says ancient coastal settlements in Cornwall that had their ancestors buried under the floor of the house. Yeah, so many. The Kogi Indians, who I spent time with in Colombia on a number of occasions. That was it was always a thing that the people you bury someone where they live. Why take them away? It's cruel.
Lachlan, good to see you. Lachlan from Nigeria has joined us there. And where was it? David. Hi, David. Potter, that is, for your benefit, Rupert.
Thank you.
That is a capital M, I should say, ANX. Manx, as in from the Isle of Man, Queenie. On the Isle of Man, they call scallops Queenies. I think I'm right anyway. I only lived there till I was 6 years old.
I'm pretty sure you are right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you are right.
Yeah. Anyway, only the best of prehistoric archaeology questions answered here. And yes, and seafood questions and archaeology. What on earth was the Guernsey massacre? Who's Lord I don't know if that's in our remit, Lord Blaster.
I don't know about the Guernsey massacre.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just checking down to see if we've missed anything. No, right, down to the bottom. Shall we move along? That's the best we can do, I'm afraid, really, Wildflower, with that. Loads of talking points round it, and no doubt some of your points will be answered in future as well.
Yes.
James.
I'm just going to say welcome, Lord Blaster, because so you started us off on a moment of ignorance.
Yeah, nice one. Not hard to do, mind you, Lord Blaster. Not hard to do at all. Anyway, you're very welcome. James, our friend James Bagby. Oh, Michael, I've been wondering if you ever thought of making some of the music from the film available. As a musician, it was part of what drew me in. Oh, that's nice to hear. I'm sure everyone enjoys the Dartmoor theme. Thank you for that vote of confidence in my musical abilities,
Which
James.
Dartmoor themes are you talking about, Michael?
Well, there is. I use the sort of underlying chord sequence of the main theme at the beginning of Dartmoor. There are two bits to the music to Standing with Stones, James. There's one, the bit I composed, which is the main theme, and it reiterates throughout, either using the main melody line or the underlying chord movement, which I think is what you're referring to, which I use at the beginning of Dartmoor. But the incidental music, while I edited that, I didn't actually compose that. I used a tool which was available then called, I've forgotten what it was called. It was a bit of software by Sony, and it was actually really, really, really good. But you were limited into the instruments and etc. that it used. But you chose the kind of theme, and you told the length of the bit of music you wanted. And it would cough something up, and you could adjust all the different balances between the instruments and all the rest of it. But a lot of the incidental music was created using that tool, and wonderful it was. So, yeah, that was more of an editing job. The reason I have not, the honest to God reason that the music from the film was not available separately is that not that many people really want it, and if you really do want the tracks, I'll happily send them to you, and also the time spent sort of going through the process of making them available was not much return on investment, I suspect. That's all, but thank you for the compliment from a musician. It means a great deal. I mean, also, I tell you what, should we use the same theme in Standing with Stones too? I tell you what, it would save me a lot of time.
I think
why not? It works perfectly well. It's sort of in the ballpark as what we're trying to express. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to be facetious, James, but If anybody wants the tracks, then just get in touch and I'll send them. Okay, David.
Do you know, I just want to say before you go on to that, I'm going back to Lord Blaster because he's new here, and so what normally happens. I say what normally happens. What happens every month, Lord Blaster? I wish I knew what to call you, my lord. But we put up, so just after this, a few days after tonight's show, for example, there will be a call for questions goes up on the community site, on the community page of the YouTube channel, where we say, send your questions in, and the next Q&A is on this date, which will be the second Tuesday of next month. And so people can type their questions in there, and we will answer them in the next show. So just if you wanted to ask that question, we would go away and do some research and try to give you our best information next month. That's
indeed.
That's
and we are the prehistory guys. I don't know if Andrew Brooks is right that the Guernsey martyrs were much later during the reign of King Henry VIII. Or Mary the Thing. We are not the history guys. We are the prehistory guys. Yes. That would clear that up then.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. As soon as it gets to the Romans and later, we don't know anything at all.
We bail out.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Okay, James. It's David's next. David asks, any comments on the Bronze Age 3D map story? An eye-catching headline for mainstream media, but there must be more to the story. Interesting. Well, what can we say about the bare bones of this story? It was
bare bones about this one. It's found. Oh God, where is it? It's France. It's in. Okay.
Yeah.
In northern France.
Extreme northwest France, Finistère. Yeah, in Brittany.
Not much to say about this one specifically, other than the fact that we have often thought that certain pieces of rock art, and Achnabrek in Scotland is a very good example, that we looked at them straight off and said, oh, come on, that's a map. That's big houses, little houses, and maybe that's a big round house, and that's what they look like to me anyway.
The particular one that we always used to muse over as being a map was the art on the side of Long Meg. Mm-hmm. With particular reference to something that you know about, maps and stones, from the depths of the Colombian jungle.
Yeah, well, there's this huge megalith in as Mike said, northern Colombia, deep in the jungle, in one of the Kogi cities there, and it's called the Mapstone, and it's covered in rock art and all these lines, that converge in different places, and that is a map of the city, which much of it has been engulfed by jungle now, and they only keep an amount clear, of the houses they actually keep running. It's have no idea how old that stone is. It's going to be at least 1,500 years old, at least. But it's a mapstone. It's what they call it.
Yeah, but we've established that from our point of view that, it's not an outlandish idea. But to our minds, the scant information being released about this, and it does seem to us to be highly speculative, although they say they've done all the whiz-bang stuff with it and matched it 80% to the local topography. But if they've done that, why is that being hidden? I've searched high and low, but I haven't found any reference to that work. I think your battery's gone, hasn't it?
Yes, my battery's gone. Hold on a second.
Right.
Bear with me, folks. I hope you can still hear me. I shall just...
So, I don't know. There's very little to say without any further information, and I just wonder why they're being so cagey about talking about the techniques and what convinced them that it matched with the local landscape. That's my gripe with it, and as I say, the fact that there's no further information like it to be true. Not sure where it gets us either. There is that element. There is that element to it. If you found a battery, or you've just changed over onto the camera.
No, I've just put a new battery in. It should stabilise and get less fuzzy in a second.
Okay, cool. Did you hear what I was saying, or were you unplugged?
Couldn't hear a word.
Oh, fine. No, I was just saying that without them showing their workings, in other words, they was show us your workings out. They used to say at school, didn't they?
It made me wonder if they've got a documentary coming out, and they were just not wanting to get out to the press before they got all their stuff out first, or maybe they're doing a book, or I don't know.
I don't think there's much legs behind that, to be honest. Actually.
No, well, I suspect you're right. You're right.
Sorry to disappoint, David.
It'd be nice if they are right, though, because it's something that would make a lot more sense of a lot of the other rock art. If you can categorically say that this one is a map, then suddenly people will start looking more seriously at other sites, I think.
Mm-hmm. Here's Dorman's question for the month. We can rely on Dorman. Thank you. And good questions too. And this is a good one. Any good studies on connections between megalithic culture in the Mediterranean and the more northern sites? Yes, actually. And I don't know if you've ever come across it or heard us mention it before, Dorman, and that is grand work by Bettina Schultz-Paulsen, which is in two forms, a very short paper and a very long paper. I think it's almost a book, isn't it? Wouldn't be surprised if you could get it in... what's it called?
The long paper is long. I could send it to you, Jorman, if you...
Stone and what is it called? The full text by Bettina. And it's the only this one by Bettina is the only one I can think of that really goes into trying to really establish how, and we're talking about megalithic culture here. Got to separate that out from Neolithic because it's quite easy to get the two collapsed and the two things.
Sorry to interrupt. Yep. It's called Time and Stone: The Emergence and Development of Megaliths and Megalithic Societies in Europe.
Fabulous. All right.
Yes.
So it's just making sure that it made the distinction, but that this was a study of megalithic culture, not Neolithic culture. We're not talking about Mesolithic, Neolithic transitions or anything like that, but we're talking about the development of megalithic culture in this part of the world. During the Neolithic in northwest Europe, not earlier stuff in Anatolia and beyond.
I'll tell you that Bettina's work. I mean, the whole point of Bettina's work. Incidentally, that piece that we just said, Time and Stone, that's nearly 400 pages long. So it's a piece
you did
of work.
ask, Dorman.
She's the first person who's actually used Bayesian modeling to bring all this stuff together to give some serious dating. Actually correlate every date that's ever been found, and see what shakes out at the other end. And it's a remarkable read. As Michael was just saying, that the trading that went on through the Mediterranean, that we know there's an awful lot of stuff that just spread far and wide.
Just before I say something else, the basic thesis developed by Bettina is to do with is that the megalithic tradition begins in Brittany very early, 4,700 BC. With the beginning of the big stones, which speaks to quite a community, quite a culture, with some time on their hands, and people with the power to be able to direct people to shift large lumps of stone. Now, where this power is coming from is the fact that trade was happening, was coming round basic materials, jadeite, and what's the other sort of stone?
Obsidian was a big one.
No, I don't think it was obsidian. There was another sort of tight stone that was being mined, up in that area. But was coming, it's coming round the coast and up the eastern, up the western, up the Atlantic seaboard, where where the raw materials that were coming in were being turned into artifacts. There was, a heck of a lot of artisanal wizardry going on in the Brittany region, and that's where the raw materials were being turned into whatever artifacts they may be. And my memory is that a lot of it was to do with bead manufacture and ornament manufacture, not necessarily things like axes and that sort of thing, which you'd assume to be the case. But it's a massive, massive bead production site, Brittany.
I'm actually trying to skim through her paper now, but it's Varisite is the
Varisite. That's the one.
Is the other one. Yeah.
Not that we know our stones that well. But
certainly the various greenstones that were used at the time. I mean, we have the luxury of petrology and mineral analysis now. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have looked at whether something was a jadeite or a jadetite. That's getting chemically picky, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't as simple as I've just portrayed. It gets very complicated, but that's the core of it. The idea that stuff is being traded from the Mediterranean up the coast to Brittany, and it's being converted into wealth there, and that sort of enables them to create this megalithic culture, and that's where it spreads into later into Britain. And we take it and run with it, during the next 1,500 years.
But it's something that outside of megaliths, that the trading of stones, something that I found just, I don't know, there was something really moving about it. The fact that they have found axes that, I mean, you kind of half mentioned it there. The fact that a piece of stone was taken from somewhere and it was half worked, and then it was taken to somewhere else where someone worked on it a bit more until there was a site in northern France where an axe was finished and had been through like 3 stages. You think, what is it, that they're a master craftsman, that it goes from this person to this person to this person? Or is it that just over the years that somebody thought, no, I'll turn it into something else? Or I don't know. It's just the fact that the life of this piece of stone, the fact that it's refined and refined in so many different places until it eventually finds its way to northern England or something. I love it. Just love it.
Cry for Joy, that's nice. Cry for Joy says, today I got Standing with Stones on DVD. I'm a very happy chappy.
Wow.
Love the music, love the programme. I live near Pretty Nine Barrows, or Pride Nine Boroughs. Loads of magic mushrooms grow there, just saying. Yeah. That's nice. I'm glad we've made you happy, Cry for Joy. Excellent. Yeah. Just scanning down a few comments to see if there's anything I can pick out. Sorry if I missed something. Yeah. But that's the answer to that one, Jolman. Bettina Schultz-Balsen is your gal. And I hope you can find that somewhere online readable.
She is. If not, PM me and I'll send it to you, John.
Yeah. Do that thing.
Do you know, I just want to pick up a comment on Mr. Gerio Do Nothing. Where you've said Mediterranean and northern sites all share the same branch of mathematics and geometry. And again, this is something that we've discussed because presuming that you are aware of the work of a certain Mr. Crowhurst, who's done some extraordinary work analysing the geometries of Karnak, particularly. And the thing is that we do regard that as outside our remit. Because we
if only to prevent our brains from exploding.
But the thing is, it's a complete rabbit hole. Now, that's not to dismiss the work. All hail to anybody who's doing that research. But our work is about culture and society, how people were living, and blah. The fact that you can show that a site has these complex geometries within it, what that tells you is that they were capable of doing it. It doesn't tell you why they were doing it. Ultimately, in terms of us trying to understand people, it doesn't actually get you any further down the line. So, we very much appreciate the people who are doing that work, but it doesn't help us in understanding prehistoric culture, if you see what I mean. So it's not being dismissive of it. It's just... it's a bit like you look at the Scottish stone balls, the Towie ball in particular, and it's that, how did they do that? We don't know how. Before we had metal tools, how did they do that? And the thing is, well, clearly they knew how to. They could do it. So we don't have to worry ourselves about how they did it, because that doesn't tell us about how people were living. It just tells us that they could do that too, and we don't know how they did it. Is kind of our attitude, really. So,
yeah. Me, myself, and Sky says, "Hi, both. Have you already mentioned? When Standing with Stones 2 will be coming out? Sorry if I missed it."
Coming out.
Well, Standing with Stones 1 took 2.5 years from conception to the end. We have not a clue when Standing with Stones 2 will be coming out. I would give it a couple of years at the least. It depends on funding, on all the rest of it, how quickly we can raise the money. But it's only as there's only 2 of us doing all the work, it means that it takes longer. That's why there are a lot of people in normal film crews associated with filming. It just means things get done in a shorter space of time because there's so many different jobs to be completed. But as there's only 2 of us, it takes longer. But we hope the result is worth the...
Richard says, what about SWS3? Yeah. Yeah, well, you never know.
There might have to
say
be.
that there was something... so Standing with Stones 1 took us 2 years and a bit. And it was relatively straightforward in the concept from the beginning, was a journey through megalithic Britain and Bronze Age, Neolithic and Bronze Age Britain and Ireland. So there was a line that we could see for it right from the beginning. This one is going to be a lot bigger than that, and so the difficulty is at the moment is trying to establish how are we going to tell this story. So the actual pre-production, the planning and the writing is going to take longer to do this one than it did the last one. So don't worry, we'll keep you posted, and you'll see what happens along the way. If you're in the Patreon crew, then you'll see what happens along the way, because posting
each
constant
step of the
news
way.
things, and look where we are now, and look what I've just found out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, Rich DJ, yes. Glad you just popped up. This is the final question of the evening, by the way. So, nice one to slip in here, Richard. And that is, hi both. Which filmmakers or broadcasters have influenced you? It's funny, when we were reviewing the questions earlier, we both just stuck on just one person.
Yeah, it's David Attenborough all the way. There is no one else. There isn't. David Attenborough is the finest educator of the last century. I can't imagine what we're going to do when he's gone. But it doesn't matter who you talk about in terms of that way of trying to communicate concepts clearly. I'll give you the best example. Out of all the films that he's ever made, it was in The Private Life of Plants, and there's just one sequence where he is at the top of there's a fire engine by the side of this forest, with the ladder on full rake to the top of the canopy, and a hose that they've got, the fireman at the top with a hose that's pumping water out over this, and the noise and the power coming out of the fire engine and all the rest of it. And David says, and the thing that we need to appreciate is that the trees are doing this all day long in complete silence. And it was just to have come up with that concept of how to illustrate that point, of the trees are pulling this amount of water up into their canopy all the time. Not literally all the time, obviously day and night, but just what an absolutely sublime way of illustrating that point. And personally, I have always tried to see, the concepts that you're trying to get across, try to communicate them with the same degree of clarity as that, if you possibly can. And I can't imagine that I will ever reach his level of perfection. But that's the thing. Can you think of anybody else?
I can't think
who's
of anybody
really
else
influenced you.
No, because we took David Attenborough in, with everything else. It was he was broadcasting in our formative years, right from where we really would be influenced, and also, of course, the channel through which things were coming were far, far fewer. We had the BBC or the ITV. That was it. At the beginning there, so anything in that vein was by David Attenborough. But even later, though, there are people who we might appreciate their work and respect their work, but they haven't influenced us in the same way that, Not least of all, I mean, we also have a letter from him, and it's the only letter I've ever framed of him saying how much he likes Standing with Stones. Yes.
So, yeah.
Fair dues. Bronowski.
Oh.
I mean, It was only that one series, wasn't it, that he wrote? And you wouldn't really call him a filmmaker in his own right. No. But the Ascent of Man was quite formative. I think the thing was that none of these things dumbed down. That complex concepts and all the rest of it, they found a way of presenting them without dumbing them down. So you make the audience feel, oh, I'm so glad I managed to work that out, rather than being told in simplistic terms what's going on. Your example there of the hose and the tree was a perfect example of just making the point. The other thing is the pacing of things. Everything is breakneck now because they've got to stuff everything into 10 minutes between advertisements, and you've got to remind everybody what they've forgotten while the adverts were going on.
Or for channel surfers who might only have just joined the program, show them what they've missed.
Scatological language. I'm sorry.
It's true, and in fact, we've had so many messages from people saying that, particularly when Standing with Stones was serialized, how much they like the fact that we don't repeat every 10 minutes what happened in the 10 minutes that you might have just missed. And that's another reason why we don't want to do anything with broadcast television. They can, by all means, buy our film when we've done it and show it, but we're not going to have them telling us how to make a film.
It's kind of my feeling. My theory is that you give people as much value by doing a meditation on a subject than by telling all the time. Yeah,
that's a nice way of putting it, actually.
That you give people the space. You give people the space to realize things for themselves. Just give.
Ken Clark, Hiker Joe says, Ken Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but again, Ken Clark, not really a filmmaker.
Yes.
Yeah. There are various people. Don't get us wrong here. There are. No. You can list all manner of people who have done some great work, but the question was people who have influenced us. And David's the man.
And on that note, I fear it is time after. Hang about, I can tell you. After an hour and 45.
An hour and 45.
Listening to us. Tell you what's what.
Or try, yes.
But really, it is really time to say goodnight and say thank you to you all so much for your input and support and helping us having a jolly time. Really, really much appreciated, guys.
Yes. Yeah. Indeed, yes. And eternally, thanks for the questions. Thanks for the interest. We will. So the next call for questions will be up in a few days' time. Yeah, and can I tell you what date the next one is going to be? It'll be.
Oh, what a good idea! Yeah.
It'll be the 11th of May.
Okay. Cool. Put that in your diaries. Yeah. And as said before, if you haven't already done so, certainly like and subscribe, because believe it or not, just the like and subscribe really helps the channel and YouTube notice. But to really help move the boat along, come and visit our Patreon page and see if there's a level of support that works for you. And every level of support works for us, but certainly does works for you. All right, folks, that's
Thanks for watching.
Now. We look forward to the next time. Oh, and also Thursday. It's a watch party.
Watch party Thursday.
Part 4 of Standing with Stones watch party. We're doing Ireland on Thursday night, 8 o'clock. So hopefully we'll see a lot of you there.
That'll be fun.
So in the meantime, night.
Take care, folks.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.